Good morning, everyone. It is May 6, 2018. I'm Eric. How's everyone doing? I hope you're doing good. So I got some rebuttals from my video yesterday, and I'm going to talk about these rebuttals in this video. First one comes from Lisa Cheney. And this is the one I'm really going to concentrate on because I already covered the first comment by Mr. Higher Plane. I'm going to cover his second one, and then we'll go from there. I'm going to dissect these comments and then talk about how they're either right or wrong. So, alright, and another thing I'd like to mention is you can live stream from your cell phone. So, if you want to get on here and live stream with me, please hit me up. She says, Eric, this time I have to disagree with you. The government doesn't make us do anything. We do have free will. We can make a choice between good and bad. The government isn't literally holding a gun to our heads, yet making us, for example, kill innocent people. These dirty bastards that are over the Middle East and wherever killing people on the orders of a bunch of sickos all need to be shot. I have zero respect for them. Well, here's the thing. You kind of contradicted yourself in this comment. I like it when people disagree with me because it gives me stuff to think about. And that's one of the reasons why I want somebody to come on a live stream with me so we can bounce shit back and forth. Alright. We do have free will. And we really don't have free will. We have free rage, but free will we do not have. If we had free will, we wouldn't be so overly regulated as to limit our free will. We do not have free will in any way. Some of us have freer will than others, but in order to understand where all this comes from, where our enslavement and our mental prison comes from, we got to go back to the very first civilization that we know about, and that would be the Sumerians. Now, according to them, many, many years before their civilization came to be, a race of off-world people, I'll call them. They came to the Earth, and they did genetic modifications on the people. Didn't go very well for them. They did get some people that were docile and obedient, but overall, human beings rebelled as soon as they gained consciousness. But some people didn't gain consciousness. Some people stayed in that docile state, and I think that that's where we have the people that are, for lack of better terms, so stupid that they can't see the prison in front of their faces. Yes, they are human beings, and yes, they're supposed to have free will, but do you really have free will? How can one be forced to fight in a war if we have free will? How can we be drafted into a war if we have free will? I think most people don't possess free will, and the people who do possess free will are, well, they are the conspiracy theorists of today. they go against the grain of societal norms. And it is those norms where we are, as a people, enslaved. Take authority, for example. That came from the Sumerians, okay? And as a result, it was bred into them or genetically engineered into them to have love and respect for what they called their gods. And that mentality of loving and respecting your oppressor has been handed down generation after generation ever since. Again, you do have some people that have free will, but a lot of these people who have free will oftentimes end up in prisons, mental institutions, these kinds of things, okay? So, and the reason being is because they don't want people like that out trying to influence other people, trying to shake them up out of their enslavement. So I have to disagree with you, Lisa, that we have free will, number one, and that governments aren't responsible for our current state. The art of manipulating the human mind has been mastered many, many, many hundreds of years ago by people like Niccolo Machiavelli. And these tools have been used on the population ever since. Religion, you know, it's been used to control the minds of people. And it's a form of brainwashing, right? So if you're a brainwashed people, which you cannot argue we're not, how can you? If we're a brainwashed people and we are supposed to possess free will, at the same time, the two don't go together, right? I mean, it's like saying that you're free in America when you have thousands upon thousands upon thousands of laws saying otherwise. How can freedom and thousands of laws mix? They can't, because by the very nature of a law, it is meant to restrict your potential. Let me get to Mr. Higher Plane's second comment. And you're right, they are a bunch of sickos, and they all need to be shot because they're not thinking for themselves. But the government is literally holding a gun to your head. Literally. If you don't pay taxes, you may get a letter in the mail saying, you know, you owe the IRS X amount of dollars. And if you don't pay that, you're going to go to prison. So, yes, they literally hold guns to your head. They hold the threat of being put in a prison over your head if you don't want to comply with their rules. And Mr. Higher Plane, the thing is that the government are people. Yes, they are. Well, I don't know about that. Can sociopaths actually be considered people? I think they're probably humanoid, but due to their inability to feel or have emotional connections with people, I would argue that they're not human. Okay? Or they have a brain defect. But nonetheless, we can say that they are people. Okay? He says they grew up in the same society we did. Yes, they did. But again, some people have a stronger sense of how can I put this here? They have a stronger sense of duty duty to comply than those of us who have somehow broken away from the thinking of mainstream society. We all grew up in the same society. They did. They grew up in the same society, but that very society has been at war since its birth. We have been attacked on multiple levels since our birth as a nation. The people of this country has been attacked many, many times and still continue to be attacked. So, you know, that brainwashing aspect makes those people innocent in my eyes, because they've been brainwashed. It's like if a person is captured by the CIA and they do some kind of fucking experiment on them and they make them a cold-blooded killer, is it the responsibility of that individual at that point? I don't think so. How can it be? Their consciousness was altered. And that same principle can be applied to the population as a whole. Their consciousness has been altered. And in that alteration, the free will we were given by the so-called gods is null and void. It's null and void. There is no free will. Yes, you have people, certain types of people that have free will, but overall, human beings do not have free will. That is an illusion. You have the freedom to choose what you're going to have for dinner. You have the freedom to buy that dinner. You have the freedom to buy clothes. You have freedom to travel around this country, more or less. So, but that's about the extent of your freedom. Because if you step out of line of the rules dictated to you, well, things go rather badly for you after that. And I'm living proof of this. Okay, so he says the governments are people. They are. They grew up in the same society we did. As George Carlin says, this is the best we can do. All men are free. We're not free, man. We're not free. We're not. Again, how can you be free when you have hundreds of thousands of laws, regulations, and other petty dictates coming from the ruling class that you must follow, or else? How is that free? How is that free will? They choose not to use their consciousness. Maybe they choose not to use their consciousness, or, like I said, that consciousness has been altered. Has been altered. And our consciousness can be altered through a simple psychological manipulation. Politicians don't drop bombs. Soldiers do. That's true, they do. But, again, once that soldier is in that army and he disobeys that order to drop a bomb, what happens to him? And by the way, people are waking up to this. They are not joining the military. They are not joining the police forces, because they are beginning to see the tyranny that these things produce. So, let me see. He says, I don't hold the politicians ultimately accountable for the millions murdered in their wars. How can you not hold them accountable? Just because some poor brainwashed schmuck follows the orders? How are the politicians not accountable to this? They start the war. They start the war And some stupid motherfucker is sucked into that, and then they become victimizers, right? But again, less and less people are joining the military for these reasons. But the politicians should be held accountable ultimately, and because they are the ones that start the wars. And you can blame the people doing the killing for doing the killing, but you have to hold the politicians accountable along with those people. It must be. I hold the police accountable for the crimes they commit and the oppressive laws they enforce, not politicians who create them. I would have to agree with you there, because policemen they're not combat soldiers. They are supposed to be protectors of the society, but this is not the case, is it? They are the victimizers of our society, and they do enforce the petty dictates of the ruling class. I agree with that. But again, you have the brainwashed aspect of it, and believe me, these people are brainwashed. Even if they have the evidence right in front of them that what they're doing is wrong, that Stockholm Syndrome keeps them from expressing this in physical form. They may think it, but at the end of the day, they have their orders, and if they don't follow those orders, well, all kinds of bad shit happens to them too. Let's see what else he says here. Oh shit. Okay. As for unethical products, I was referring to the products of companies like Coca-Cola, Nestle, etc., who source their goods from sweatshops or child labor. Again, this is the people who support these companies by buying those products that are at fault. Well, what if the people don't know? What if they don't know that this is the case? Again, you have to understand something. Most people spend most of their day making money to survive. If you've ever seen that film Rampage, then you know that the guy says in it that, you know, the government, your elected representatives are there to keep you stupid in your small, stupid little world. And part of that is hiding or trying to hide the evils of industrialization. And there are lots of evils. For example, PepsiCo using aborted kidney fetal cells or some shit like that. That's definitely an unethical product. But and I know you're going to use the excuse that ignorance is no excuse, or reasoning anyway, and it really is. How can a person know every law there is and then turn around, break one of these thousands of laws and not even know that it's a law? I mean, did you know up until a couple years ago that the Happy Birthday song was copyrighted and it was illegal for people to use it? Who knew that? So theoretically, they could have been arrested, and that cop would have told them ignorance is no excuse for breaking the law. And I've heard this many, many times out of a cop's mouth. So I think ignorance probably is a good reason. If they don't know these products are unethical, then how can they act against them? And if you're concerned that people are using these products, perhaps you should make a YouTube video and talk about the unethical aspects of these companies. It's easy to make the argument for Nestle. They go around, suck up all the resources, the water in particular, and then they charge you an arm and a leg for it. And you're right, at the end of the day, people do buy these products and support these companies, but if they don't know, then how can they act? As far as the Indians and the settlers are concerned, it was no act of violence to come to America to begin with. No difference than now, or no different than how white people are angry about the Muslims and Mexicans coming into their country. Well, it is different because these people haven't conquered. They haven't conquered this country. And that's the difference right there. We came here, Europeans. We conquered this land. Now, the death toll of the Indians is a very arguable thing because they've been at war with each other at that point for a long time. They were killing each other long before a white man got on their continent here. The Vikings actually were here first, and as a result of an action by the sister of the ruler of that time, they had to leave North America, and never come back. That was his solution to what she did. But nevertheless, it is different because white people came to this continent, conquered it, and then turned around and built a civilization out of it. Yes, there were slaves. You have to understand something. A very, very, very small percentage of people in North America actually own slaves. And again, the Africans helped in that endeavor. Likewise, it would be hypocritical to say that it was okay for whites to do it. Not only that, but the Europeans killed millions of the natives. Well, they didn't do it on purpose. It wasn't something done on purpose. What happened is these Indians did not have acquired immunity from some of the diseases that the Europeans carried with them, and as a result of that, they died. How were the Europeans supposed to know that that would happen? I don't think it was their intent to come over here and to kill everything and everyone at all. Like you said in your comment, they came here for a better life, to worship as they chose. Most of these people were Protestants that were being targeted by the Catholic Church. So, okay, let me see here. Oh, he says it was an act of violence to come to America to begin with. How so? How so? How wasn't it an act of violence? Wasn't it an act of violence when the Vikings came to America? I don't see that as being the case. If that in itself was an act of violence, then every time we jump on a plane and go to another nation to explore, we're committing an act of violence. Okay, I don't call having your land and life taken reaching out. America shouldn't even be a country as we know it. if you are honest and actually care about real freedom and liberty, like you said, Europe for Europeans, Africa for Africans, America for Americans, I think it's a little too late for that. The indigenous population is already gone. That can't be undone. Not ethically, anyway. I suppose they could clone these people and repopulate North America with them, but it won't happen. We've already established a little over 200-year-old civilization. It's just not going to happen. And I do care about freedom and liberty, real freedom, and liberty is not freedom. It is being allowed liberty. And I did say Europe for Europeans, Africa for Africans, but there's no turning back the America part. It's already done, and it's long been done. There's nothing we can do about it. As far as Africans go, yes, they did sell blacks. Actually, slavery was invented by Africans, but the Europeans get all the fucking blame for it. Okay, my point was that the whites in America supported slavery as a business. I don't think they did, man. If they supported slavery as adamantly as you claim, then what was all the shit about abolishment about? I think a very small part of the population thought that it was okay, while the rest of the population didn't. If they didn't think, or if they thought that it was okay, then that war would have never happened. Would have never happened. All them white people would not have volunteered to fight in that war if they thought slavery was okay. Yes. There were some that were just against it, obviously, but the vast majority likely simply didn't care. And again, if they didn't care, then why would they fight a war to free slaves? It doesn't make any sense. Whites didn't end slavery. A small minority of government abolished it for financial reasons. But they were white. They were white. Regardless of who did it, they were still white. And it was still white people that went to war to do so. Even if that wasn't the original intent of Abraham Lincoln, it was the intent of the people fighting the fucking war. So, even then, after slavery, whites implemented Jim Crow, which they did. Let's face it, a good majority of Americans don't care if blacks are free or not. I don't think it's a majority. I think it's probably a minority, because I care if you're free, because if they can remove your freedom, they can remove mine. They can take my freedom just like they take yours, and have. You have to understand that while black people per capita are targeted by the justice system or injustice system, you have to remember that whites compile way more people than blacks in the system. So we're victimizing our own people. And so I have to disagree with you that the majority of Americans don't care if blacks are free or not. The fact of the matter is we're all slaves now, and Abraham Lincoln is responsible for that. We're just a different kind of slave. They figured out that, hey, why should we pay the expense of holding these slaves their food, their medical costs, when we can make them supply all that shit for themselves through employment, and we collect that same revenue through taxes. So they have to support it because the government makes them. See, then you're completely knocking down your own argument right there when you say the government makes them. If we have free will, how can the government make us? We don't have free will. Free will is not a real thing. Again, you have the freedom to decide where you're going to live in this country, to a small degree, how you're going to live, where you're going to go, what you're going to buy, but that is the extent of your freedom. If you try to leave this plantation, you have to have all kinds of paperwork and shots and all kinds of other shit. That is not freedom. That is not freedom or liberty. I get called nigger daily, and I'm smart enough to know that the average person is not my friend. Well, what do you mean by average person? Are you including your own race in there? Because it seems to me black people, their biggest predator is other black people. Again, you have to refer to the murder rates and who commits these murders, and by a staggering amount, it's black people killing black people and not white people killing black people. So this idea that whites really hate black people or don't care if they're free, I don't see it, because of that. We're not even defending ourselves against attacks from black people. We're being killed. So how can you say that? How can you write that? You may get called that every day. I don't know. I'm not there with you, but every time I go into a gas station or a business or a state-ran agency, I've never ever heard anyone call anyone else a nigger. We may say that word, but we don't use it in the context of black people. We use it in the context of a type of person, and that type of person can be black, white, or any other fucking race. Okay, that's how we use the N-word. Most white people don't see it as a racial word, but rather a word that describes a certain kind of person. Like you said in your comment there yesterday, that a black man has 2 jobs, and a nigger says he can't find a job. Okay, and I asked, what if that so-called nigger actually cannot find a job? Is he still a nigger? I don't think so. I don't think he is. If he's putting in the effort and getting nowhere, then it's no fault of his own. So that whole premise is wrong. White people nowadays, we more sympathize with your plight than don't. And I'm an example of that. I just want people to understand that if it's okay for black people to have their own country, their own state, whatever you want to call it, then everyone else should be able to do the same without being called racist. Okay. Okay, look at Nazi Germany. If the government tells its people to kill, they won't hesitate. I disagree again, because there were people in Nazi Germany that helped the Jews get away. Yes, you're always going to have those evil people that follow orders, but you're always going to have the opposite side of that. And instead of concentrating on the side that done the killing, maybe we need to concentrate on the side that did the rescuing. Look at, just like when the United States government tells its people to kill gooks and sand niggers, they happily oblige. Again, that's a small percentage of people. The overall population don't act that way, do they? Of course, they don't have to be told to do these things. They want to. And a lot of people join the police forces and the military so that they can legally kill. So you're right. They happily oblige. And these are the kinds of people that I keep talking about that we must eliminate from our society. The control freaks and their followers. I didn't only limit my rant to the government. That rant applied to the people on the ground level that are cooperating with them. They deserve the exact same thing that the leaders deserve. They deserve to be hung from the first tree you can find. Whether they're white, black, or anything else, does not matter. No matter who they are, what color they are, if they have helped in our enslavement in any way, they should be held accountable at the end or during the war. And make no mistake about it, there is a war coming. And this war is going to consist of people who want to be free against the statist people. There's not going to be a race war. The reason there's not going to be a race war is, like I explained in my video, a message to my brothers of another color. And black folks are waking up to their current enslavement, and other people are waking up to their current enslavement. And those who serve the system are going to end up having to fight those who refuse to. You got to wonder, though, which one will have more numbers. Right now, they have the numbers of supporters that would fight for them. But on that on the other hand, these same supporters do not have a original thought of their own. So beating them would be easy. And this next line is where your whole argument gets defeated, in my opinion. But again, I do agree partially with you. Man's brain can be easily programmed. Well, if man's brain can be easily programmed, and they are programmed, then how can you hold the people who've been programmed responsible for their support of the government? You can't, because their consciousness has been altered. And you make the argument right here that you make the argument for me in this next sentence that I'm going to read. Otherwise, most of us are robots, or just robots made in a societal factory. And that's true. We are born into the society We are born into, just because we're born, we give consent to be ruled over. Look, if our democracy or republic was real, if it was actually a thing, would all but 2 of the presidents be related? If anyone could run for president, would they all be related? And I argue no. If anyone could run for president and make these laws, then anyone could run for president, but they're all related, including Donald Trump. And there's like 2 that weren't related. That's it. In our whole history, 2 presidents weren't related to the others. And all of those other presidents, their bloodline goes back to British royalty. Some of them, their bloodline goes back to the Rothschilds. So, no, we don't have free will. As you just said we are robots in a societal factory. Okay, the mind is a computer, and it unknowingly downloads information fed to it. That's true. But once you expose these things, like I try to do, they have less and less of an effect on that programmed person. Before you know it, that person ends up with the proper consciousness to decide, maybe this isn't such a great thing after all. Some of us from childhood have looked around as children. I'm like, what the fuck is all this about? How can we be free if there's these people that will come and take you away for disobeying? That was my first question as a child. How can we be free if this is going on? Likewise, people have to be taught how to live their lives in accordance with natural law and not the law of man or some government. Well, if people aren't taught this, if they're not programmed with this ideology, how can they be responsible for what they believe? I don't think they can be. I certainly do dislike people to a very high degree, but at the end of the day, many, many millions of people, if not billions, are victim to the society they've been born into. For example, a little Jewish baby is a victim to the rabbi. The Islamic child is a victim to the elders of that faith, the older people. They have free reign to do with those children what they want. But to them, it's normal. And that's because they've been programmed to think, hey, this is normal. And it's not. It's not normal to harm children in any way. That's not normal. We have to rebuild our government and its societal institutions. Yeah, maybe. Maybe we just don't have them at all. I mean, every time a government is formed, it ends up being this monolithic thing that is hard to topple. Okay. Okay. The mind is a computer, and it unknowingly downloads information fed to us. We just have to download the right stuff, and that is true, but right now they are feeding us garbage. And who is they, by the way? When I say they, I'm referring to the ruling class. Who are you referring to when you say they? And by the way, if you mean the government, then the entire argument that you spent probably a good bit of time on is null and void. You may feel this way, but the actual reality is a whole lot different. And I think probably it's more complicated than just government, okay? It's not just the government, but that is a good starting point. And I agree that man needs to begin to think for themselves by being honest. I agree. I see through lies because I'm from Africa. Well, in Africa we are relatively free. Agrarian. This has impacted the brain through years of evolution. Yes, there is actually a part of the brain that deals with compliance and non-compliance, of course. Look at the Milgram experiment. All a person needs is the appearance of authority, and people will gladly do what they say. And this goes all the way back to authority. If people naturally have a predisposition to obedience of authority, then how can they be responsible for that obedience? And until they know better, they can't be. That is probably the whole purpose of making YouTube videos for many, many people, to inform the general population of the predicament that we've been put into. And until that population stumbles across this information, like so many of us have, we're gonna continue to be enslaved. And we are slaves together. Black people and white people. It was like that back during the bondage times, and it's like that now. It's just a different type of slavery. Democracy is not a political system, it is a slave management system. And that same thing applies to republic, fucking communism, socialism. These are management systems. So, anyway, I thought I would give you a counter argument for what you said here. I could be wrong, of course. You could be right, of course. But that's just how I see it. If I guess the nutshell here is this. If we're programmed, some people are successful at ridding themselves of the programming. Those people are like myself, you, to some degree, the Alex Jones of the world and Paul Watsons of the world, but see, they still have a little bit left in them that wants that authority pushing down, their thumb down on everybody. And so they're not fully conscious. Not fully conscious. Anyway, I hope you all have a good day. Kill the state before the state kills you.